Welcome to the Wisconsin Wellness Podcast. I'm Lori Groh, therapist, business owner, consultant, wife, and mom of four. I created this podcast because busy professionals like you need more than vague advice. You need strategies that work when you're already overwhelmed. So let's make this happen together. Hi, welcome to our webinar on brain health. I am the owner of Shoreside Therapies, podcast host of Wisconsin Wellness, and today we have Victoria Hagan with us, and she is going to talk with us about brain health. And so one of the things that stands out to me about brain health is that idea of walking into a room and forgetting why you were in the room in the first place, right? And figuring out, is this normal, not normal? So today, Victoria is going to be talking a bit about those differences and also some tips and important things we can do to increase our brain health. So welcome, Victoria.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. So a little bit about me. I have originally worked in neuropsychology department where I helped them develop a brain health clinic. And that really sparked my interest in working with people to find out the strategies we can use right now to help our brains stay as sharp as they can as we age. I also work with adults who are having life stressors or anybody who is having any concerns about their mental health. So one of the things that is interesting is that research shows that the risk of dementia can be reduced by up to 40% through lifestyle changes. So that means things that you can control in your own life can really impact your brain health as you age. So in what ways do our brains age? There are the super-agers. So these are people who are 80 years old or older, but their brain is functioning at the age of 20 to 30 years younger than their actual physical age. And that's about 10% of the population. Next, we have mild cognitive impairment. So that means that your brain may not be functioning as it should for your age. It's declining a little quicker than we'd like, but it's not a dementia. And this is an area where we can really impact, how our brain continues to age at this point. Next, and that's about 10 to 20% of the population at age 65. Next are the dementias. So that is, Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body's disease. Could be vascular dementia, which would come oftentimes from a stroke. And that is at age 65, about 5 to 8% of the population. But that number increases every 5 years as you age. And then lastly, we have normal brain aging, which is the vast majority of us. And what that says is that at age 50, our brains don't work quite as quickly as they did when we were younger. So you might have a hard time multitasking. Sometimes you might have a harder time retrieving the right word. Or as Lori mentioned in the beginning, it could also be, you walk into the room and you're thinking, why am I here? You walk out and you remember. That is all normal brain aging. And again, that's the majority of us with 62 to 75%. Really, today's presentation is going to be most helpful to those who are having normal brain aging or those who are having mild cognitive impairment. So the nuns study. This is one of the things that really just fascinated me. They studied a group of nuns from the School Sisters of Notre Dame. I believe they're located in Minnesota. It's been a long study starting back in 1986. And they've studied 678 nuns aged 75 to 106. They took part of the group of nuns and they put them on these lifestyle changes. What they found was that by making lifestyle changes, even if at autopsy they saw that the nuns had these cellular changes for dementia, they never expressed it, meaning that they never showed any signs of memory change. So here's 3 examples. First, there's Sister Matthias. Sister Matthias was vivacious and happily involved. Her autopsy showed moderate level of cellular changes, yet during her lifetime, she never showed any signs of memory loss or dementia. Next is Sister Bernadette. She had a genetic risk for Alzheimer's disease, and at autopsy, it showed that her brain had Alzheimer's-related changes. Again, during her lifetime, she didn't have any examples of memory loss or cognitive decline. And finally, we have Sister Mary. She was active in her community. She read, prayed. She was interested in the world. She had strong memory testing until her death at 102. And at autopsy, again, we saw a lot of cellular abnormalities. Yet during her lifetime, she didn't show any signs of memory loss or dementia. I just think this is so incredibly powerful, is that we maybe can't change what's happening inside our brains at a cellular level, but we most definitely can change how our life is impacted by that. So, what are the factors, the lifestyle factors that can positively impact your cognitive function? Does anybody have any examples of what some of the 5 pillars of cognitive health might be?
And
And Lori, if
anyone
you
can,
can just read to us anything that pops up.
yeah, I'll take a look. Anyone can enter into the chat if they would like to answer. All right, exercise was one.
Exercise. Yes. Exercise is a great way to impact your mental health, or I'm sorry, your physical and cognitive health. We'll talk about it in detail more, but I like to say it's a secret sauce of keeping your mind and body healthy.
And somebody else put in supplements and diet, Prevagen, I think they wrote.
Yeah. So diet is absolutely important. We'll talk about nutrition. But, the research really isn't showing any benefits from the Prevagen or different types of supplements. There just isn't anything that's showing that that makes a difference. The things we'll talk about today have all been researched and shown to make an impact on your cognitive health. And sadly, the supplements is not one of those.
It's good to know.
So let's go through a couple of all of the 5 pillars. So first, we have nutrition. So diet. Feed your brain a healthy diet. Next, exercise. It's good for your heart. It's good for your brain. Sleep. Sleep is when we clean out the gunk and solidify our new memories. Social engagement and learning. Building and strengthening the pathways within our brain. And last, but definitely not least, is stress reduction. Improves the mood, good for your cognitive health. So let's talk about nutrition first. So you may have heard of the Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet. Both of those were developed for heart health. And when researchers looked at the components of those, they were able to pull different pieces from them, and they came up with the MIND diet. So the MIND diet is really what's going to be done to keep your brain healthy, to provide it with the nutrients it needs. So we'll run through these quickly. You have whole grains, 3 servings a day, leafy greens, 6 to 7 servings a week, vegetables at least once a day, nuts, 5 to 7 a week, beans or legumes, 3 to 4 a week, berries twice a week, poultry twice a week, and seafood once a week. Try to use olive oil as your main fat. So as much as you can replace butter with olive oil, that'll be a healthy choice. And if you like to drink 1 glass of wine a day. What I think is really interesting about this is that we don't see red meat on the list. And we really only see getting our main proteins from fish or poultry 3 days a week. Really mean the other days, the other 4 days a week, it should be nuts, beans, legumes that are providing you with your protein. Next is exercise. So again, if it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. Exercise increases the blood flow and oxygen to the brain, which are vital to brain health. It helps maintain balance. So not only to you continue to be mobile as you age, but also to prevent falls and other illnesses that, can happen if you're not exercising. Exercise improves your mood. The goal is to have 150 minutes a week. So that could be 30 minutes for 5 days. And you can even break those 30 minutes down into 10-minute increments. But the goal is to make sure you get your heart pumping, you get the blood flowing, and that you feel like you've had a little bit of exercise. So exercise is the secret sauce to cognitive, physical, and mental health. Sleep, 7 to 9 hours per night. So have we heard of sleep hygiene? Does anybody have any examples of what some good sleep hygiene would be?
All right, I'll unmute myself and see if there's any comments. All right. One is putting your phone away, not sleeping with your phone right next to you.
Yeah, that is a great one. So many people will have the phone next to the bed, or even when they're going to sleep at night, will be reading a book on an iPad. So the rule is that you should put away anything that emits that blue light, meaning televisions, phones, iPads, tablets, about 30 minutes before sleep. Because the blue light from there really disrupts our brain waves and prevents us from falling asleep and getting a good night's sleep. Another suggestion is to not have alcohol or caffeine too close to bedtime. Those have been shown to disrupt our sleep. and to create a nice, relaxing routine when you go to bed. Try to go to bed at the same time every night, even on weekends and vacations. And then also, if you're in bed and you're having a hard time falling asleep, or you wake up and can't get back to sleep, after about 20 minutes, try to get up and do something else. Read a book, do something relaxing. When you're tired, go back to bed. Try to keep your bed predominantly for sleeping. Sleep is also important because this is when we process and store facts, we consolidate our memories, and it might reduce the plaques that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. So think of sleep as the time where your brain, the cleaning crew comes in, removes the gunk, and then think of, that messy desk with all those papers through the day. It takes those papers, puts them in a filing cabinet so that you can retrieve those memories and that information later. So social engagement or learning. So this is kind of, again, a use it or lose it. You've heard of use it or lose it for your muscles. Well, think of this as a use it or lose it for the muscle of your brain. It's really important to continue to learn new things as we age. That increases our cognitive reserve, which is the brain's ability to be efficient and build new pathways. Can somebody give me an example of some cognitive leisure activities?
Check the chat. Let's see. Reading, is that one?
Reading is a great leisure activity. Absolutely. The ones that I had come up with are walking or fishing, but reading would absolutely fall in there. How about some cognitive social activities?
Playing sheephead, someone wrote.
All right, that's perfect. So here I have playing cards, playing
There we go.
mahjong. The important thing about this is that this is something that you're doing in real life with other people. Playing games on your phone, doing the crossword puzzle on the paper, those are great. But really, once you have learned how to tackle a crossword puzzle or whatever, a solitaire, whatever game you're playing on your phone, your brain's not really getting any added benefit from that. So being social, playing cards, playing mahjong are wonderful ones. How about some intellectual activities?
See. And we have learning a new hobby.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So learning a new hobby
Yeah.
is a great one. I put down knitting, so that could be a hobby. Learning to knit, learning to play a musical instrument, learning a new language. Anything that is new for you to learn falls under this category. So the goal is to have 11 or more activities that fall into these buckets a week. Again, increased cognitive reserve is linked to lower development of Alzheimer's disease. Stress, again, last but not least, stress reduction, really important. Stress has been shown to, or chronic stress has been shown to contribute to Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, which could lead to a stroke or vascular dementia, and depression. So these are 3 techniques to reduce stress. One is mindfulness. Not sure if you've heard of that term, but it really means just being present in the moment where you are. One of my favorite mindfulness techniques is box breathing. So what that just means is it means inhaling for the count of 4, holding your breath for the count of 4, exhaling for the count of 4, and holding your breath for the count of 4. I'll talk you through and we'll do kind of 3 rounds of that. But beforehand, take a moment and think about what your stress level is right now. Give yourself a number from 1, I have no stress at all, to 5, I'm extremely stressed. I'm going to hold that number. And now I'll walk you through it. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. So now take another minute and try to score your stress again. 1, I have no stress. 5, I'm completely stressed. Hopefully, you've seen a little reduction in that number. But if you haven't, don't worry. This is a skill that sometimes takes a little practice before you really see the results of it. Another way to reduce your stress is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's kind of a form of talk therapy. Sometimes meeting with somebody who can understand your stress, who you can share, and they can help you figure out what the basis of that is, and then teach you some tools to help reduce the stress. It can be really helpful. Another way to reduce stress is spirituality. A lot of people find taking a look at the world from a larger perspective can really help them reduce their own stress. Of course, another great benefit of stress reduction is improved mood.
You know that feeling when you meet someone and within 5 minutes you just know you could talk to them for hours? Actually, that's one of my hiring requirements at Shoreside Therapies. Yep, all of our therapists are highly educated, experienced, specialized in all sorts of different areas. But the real test is, can I imagine sitting with them for an awkwardly long road trip? There's not a ton of people that I would do that with. As a self-proclaimed awkward introvert myself, I've realized how important this is. Finding the therapist isn't just about credentials. It's about feeling comfortable enough to show up as yourself. The good, the bad, the I just cried watching a dog commercial version of you. And that's why I'm so picky about who joins our team. So if you're looking for a therapist who not only knows their stuff, but also feels like a real person, then check us out. Shoreside Therapies, where therapy is real, human, and maybe even a little fun. Yes, it can be fun sometimes.
So again, our 5 pillars of cognitive health are nutrition, feed your brain; exercise, if it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain; sleep, clean out the gunk and solidify new memories; social engagement and learning, building new and strengthening pathways in the brain; and again, last but not least, is stress reduction to improve your mood. So what is your why? Why do you want to improve your brain health? In what ways will this positively impact your life? Which pillars are you already incorporating into your life? Give yourself credit for what you're doing well. And which pillars were you most interested in adding to your life? We tend to do what we like. So if you want to learn more, you can reach out to me at the phone number or email listed below. We do a 12 to 16 week course where we walk through the 5 pillars, track your progress, and provide you with tools to continue using after the course. Any questions?
All right, so we're going to open up the chat for some questions. Let's see what we got. So let's see. Oh, we got one that's, does it really matter if I scroll through my phone before bed? How bad is that blue light? And I know you talked about it, but somebody,
Yep.
I think they might not want to give it up.
It's really hard to give up, absolutely. But it is really detrimental. Again,
Yeah.
every person's a little bit different. So if you have no trouble sleeping and you fall asleep easily and you sleep for 7 to 9 hours, then maybe for you, it's not a problem. But if you have any trouble falling asleep, or if you wake up and can't get back to sleep, that might be something you can try. Maybe instead of reading or scrolling through your phone, maybe read a magazine. Flip through the pages of a magazine. You kind of get that same, little bits of information, but without the blue light.
Right. And something you and I were talking about before that I think would be great to hear a little bit more of your thoughts on, and the link between hearing and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, so this is something I didn't put into the presentation. It's pretty new research in the last couple of years, but they're really showing there's a huge link between hearing loss and dementia. They believe that it's because when you don't have your hearing isn't good, you're not getting all the sensory inputs that you would otherwise. So, if you have a concern with your hearing, or if you have hearing aids, but you're not necessarily wearing them, maybe the motivation is to think that you're going to be able to keep your brain healthy and slow down any opportunities for dementia by making sure you're hearing and getting all of your sensory inputs. It's very important.
I mean, that link, I wasn't aware of that. And what's nice now is that the hearing aids aren't like they used to be, they can be really small. But yeah, taking that that step if you are noticing hearing loss. I know a lot of Apple phone users also have like a little assessment they have on that, but also good if you're noticing that to go check that out because, yeah, clearly that can make a huge impact. Yeah. So the other thing that I, noticed and thought was something I didn't know and thought it was really great to hear of how impactful sleep is on clearing out the junk, clearing out the plaque. And I just didn't realize how impactful that was.
Yes,
Yeah.
sleep is, it can be elusive, right? As we get
Yeah.
older, it's really hard to quiet our brains and get a right amount of sleep. And, sleep, there's kind of two different functions in the brain. There's the fall asleep function, and then there's the stay asleep function. And, depending on where you have difficulty or possibly with both, it's really great to kind of talk with somebody, a therapist, a doctor, to find out, where it is difficult for you and how that can be addressed. Sleeping pills are not my favorite answer for that. They're not as effective after you've used them for a while. So I think that sometimes just addressing whatever it is that's happening in your mind is maybe a better solution.
Right. Right. All right. So a couple more comments. Let's see. What's a simple daily habit I could start today
Mm.
to help protect my brain? You gave a lot of examples, but maybe they're looking for something maybe shorter,
Yeah. So,
something.
I say the exercise is the secret sauce because it not only helps your cognitive ability, it helps your physical ability, it helps your mental health ability. So, if you're not exercising, I would absolutely start incorporating exercise into your life. If you're somebody who's older, you have some health concerns, maybe you want to check with your doctor about what types of exercise are best for you, but absolutely starting to add some exercise. The other thing I think is really interesting, and this maybe falls under the stress category, is that, and I can't give you the percentage of this off the top of my head, but when I was working in the neuropsychology department, I was really surprised by the number of people who came in concerned for memory, word finding issues, things like that. And they didn't have any cognitive decline, but they did have a lot of stress, anxiety, depression. And often it was recommended that they address their underlying kind of mental health concerns or stressors, and that would help alleviate the things that they were associating with memory loss. So, that is just a really important thing as we age. A little example is, let's say when you're young, you've got 5% of your brain that's taken up by stress and anxiety, and you've got this big, healthy brain. So you got 95% of it that's doing everything else, and you kind of push that other side to the other side. So we get older and we just don't have as much brain capacity as we did before. Well, that 5% might be the same size, but now it's taking up a much larger percentage of your cognitive ability. So it kind of sneaks in and says, "Hey, I'm going to take over here for a while." So if you can reduce your stress, anxiety, depression, that really has a positive impact on your cognition.
Right. I love that too. Of that, there's a possibility that it's not right, but going in, getting that checked out. But at the minimum, if you're starting to do some of those things to reduce your stress, you can start to see if that's that cause of it, which I think is incredible. The other thing is when you were talking about the nun study, it it shocked me how much of an impact what they were doing had on their day to day,
Yeah.
that they had all of the symptoms physically of having some of those issues, right? And no
Yeah.
symptoms.
But no symptoms. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think so important for all of us to just take that in of how we don't have control over every single thing in our life. But, that is something you definitely can, you can do. You can do these things. And I like that you had it listed out in that way of, you know, 11 things in a week, and what are those things you're already doing? Because again, giving yourself credit, knowing you're doing some things right, I think helps motivate us. So,
Yeah. And I think, just one other thing that Laura, you touched on a little bit earlier, and I think I maybe mentioned once, But if you are having any concerns about your memory, your cognition, how are things going, word finding, you can talk to your doctor. You can get a neuropsychological evaluation. Because if you are diagnosed with, like, let's say, a mild cognitive impairment, which I had said, that's not a dementia, but it does mean that your brain isn't working quite as well as we'd like it to for your age, we can really make an impact at that point. About 50% of people with mild cognitive impairment will develop a dementia, but the other 50% won't. So I just like to give people as many tools as they can use to keep themselves in that healthier category.
Right. And it's that early screening, that early assessment that we do for our bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Going in and getting a mammogram and colonoscopy and all of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, for my opinion, should be one of those things on the list, because if you can make that amount of impact and protect your brain, why not? Why not do that? Why not get things checked out and get them done sooner than later?
Absolutely. Because if it's a mild cognitive impairment and we can catch it early, we can implement these tools and hopefully it won't progress to a dementia.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Victoria, for your time. This was really great. I got a lot out of it. I know our listeners will too, and our audience right now as well. Let's end and by just saying thank you to you and thank you for everyone listening. If you do want to get a hold of Victoria, her information's on her website at shoresighttherapy.com, and she has her phone number and email as well, and offers 15-minute free phone consults. So it's no pressure. She will help you decide if you're going to be a good fit. And if not, then, she can find somebody that would be a good fit. So I just encourage anyone that is thinking that they might want to work on some of these things to reach out to Victoria.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in. If this episode helped you, leave a quick review and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And while I am a therapist, I'm not your therapist. But good news, I know some amazing ones. Head to shoresighttherapy.com to get matched. Want a little extra support? Grab my free 5-minute reset rituals when you join the newsletter at wisconsinwellnesspodcast.com. Take care of yourself today, and remember, small steps really do add up.